Welcome to the corporate reporting course. My name's Kieran Doe. I'm a senior tutor at ACA Masters and multiple ICAW prize winner, and I look forward to getting you through your CR exam with top marks. So the course is structured based on the exam questions in the CR exam. So in the exam, you'll have questions on financial reporting, audit risks and procedures, other audit questions, including use of the data analytics software, financial statement analysis, and ethics. So question 1 will be entirely financial reporting based, whereas questions 2 and 3 will have financial reporting and audit. And of course, question 2 will require use of the data analytics software and be based on the advanced information. Financial statement analysis and ethics can appear in any question. So our course is structured around the exam because it's a very exam-focused course. So the way we structure the course is that we break it down into each examinable area, topic, and question type. So we'll firstly work through all of the various financial reporting topics, and we'll look at financial reporting and audit risks and procedures questions. So we'll firstly begin with assets. So there'll be the FAR revision class, and then there'll be the CR class on assets. So the way that the classes are structured is I'll firstly teach you the key technical content in a nice, easy to understand, simplified way. Immediately after, I'll then go to some recent exam questions and work through the question to demonstrate how to apply that technical content in the exam. So as soon as I've taught the technical content, I will immediately demonstrate how to apply that in an exam context by working through recent exam questions. So not only does this allow me to demonstrate how to apply that content to practical scenarios, it enables me to teach you the optimal exam technique to use in the CR exam for each question type. So this will include how to read and interpret the requirements so you can identify the best way to approach the question to see if there's an opportunity to answer several parts of the question simultaneously. I'll explain how to allocate the marks to each requirement so that you can estimate the time you should spend on each requirement. So then once we've identified the best way to approach the question, we'll then be able to read through the information actively, and I'll be explaining how to identify which piece of information is relevant to each requirement and how to integrate this information into your answer and the key points in the question which you should develop points from. I'll then produce my answer to the question so you can see me work through the question in full, and I'll be able to demonstrate the types of points you should include in your answer, the writing style you should use, how to structure your answer as a whole, how to answer several parts of the question simultaneously. So it's important to note that the answers in the back of the ICAW question bank aren't what students are expected to produce. They're far too detailed, and whilst they're a very useful resource because they give comprehensive explanations, you aren't expected to produce that level of detail. So as we go through the questions, you get to see my answers to the questions, and that is something which you should be aiming to produce in the exam. So I'll teach you how to answer the question concisely and effectively to ensure that you pick up all of the marks for the question. So by the end of the course, you would have seen me work through questions on every topic, every question type, so you'll be very clear on what you need to produce in the exam. So as I said, each class is structured in that there's a technical tuition part where I simplify the technical content, but perhaps most importantly, you get to see me apply that content when working through and answering questions. And I can teach you the optimal exam technique to use and demonstrate that optimal exam technique to use for each type of CR exam question. After the class, you can then go away, make sure you've understood that key technical content, and you can also go and practice other questions which examine that topic. So as we said, we'll start with assets. I'll teach you the key technical content for assets. I'll then work through a series of questions on assets, showing you how to apply that content in the exam and the exam technique to use. After the class, you can go away and make sure you've understood that technical content. And then most importantly, you can go and practice some other questions on assets so that you can practice that exam technique that I have demonstrated. So you'll then go away, make sure you've understood all of this key technical content. So if you're also using our materials, which are designed to be used in the exam, you've got all of the technical FR content for each topic concisely summarized in the materials. And then you've also got audit risks and procedures as well for each topic area. So you can then go away, make sure you've understood this content, and then you can go and practice the other questions. So you can see here highlighted in bold the questions which are covered as part of the video course. You'll see me work through all of these questions, and then you'll be very clear on the exam technique to use and the technical content. So you can just go away and then practice the other questions so that you can practice applying that exam technique that I taught you during the class. And then once you've done that and you've practiced those other assets questions, you then will have mastered assets. And then we can move on to the next topic. So we can then move on to revenue, but we're just using the same approach every time. So during the class, I'll teach you the key technical content in a nice, easy to understand way. I'll then work through some recent questions on revenue, showing you how to apply that content in the exam technique to use. You can then go away and practice the other questions and make sure that you've understood this key technical content. So again, I'll work through several questions. You can then go and practice the other questions. And you can see we're just breaking CR down topic by topic, covering both FR and audit risks and procedures. So after assets and revenue, we'll then look at provisions, financial instruments, hedging, all of the main topics which are examined in the CR exam. Leases, share-based payments, pensions, tax, of course, including deferred tax, everybody's favorite topic. And then we'll also look at groups. So for all of the topics, there's the main class where I teach the key technical content and work through some exam questions. Then we've also included some additional questions as well, where I just work through even more questions. You can just see me working through even more questions on each of the topics. So that's not essential viewing because that's included here. But if you want to see me work through even more questions, then you can. And by the end of the course, we've probably covered the majority of the recent exam questions. So we'll just be taking it one topic at a time. You'll just be mastering one topic at a time. I'll be simplifying the technical content so it's easy for you to understand. And you'll find that greatly helps with topics like financial instruments, deferred tax, those more technical, trickier topics. Most importantly, I'll be demonstrating the exam technique to use, so you'll be clear on how to answer questions, and then all you're doing is going away and applying that exam technique that I've taught you and understanding those technical principles that I've taught you and applying that to exam questions, and then you will, of course, have mastered the topic yourself. We'll firstly work through the financial reporting and the audit risks and procedures questions before moving on to look at the other audit questions. So in the same way, I'll explain any key technical content you need to understand and then work through exam questions to demonstrate the exam technique to use. We'll then move on and look at the data analytics software questions. So these require the use of inflow and are based on advanced information which is released prior to the exam. and this contains narrative, but also an 11-month data set. So I'll analyze the advanced information to demonstrate how to identify key financial reporting and audit issues from the advanced information that you're provided with. I'll then work through the exam question, so reading the requirements, interpreting the requirements, and then combining the advanced information analysis with the new information provided in the exam and the month 12 data in order to answer the specific requirement and produce an answer that the examiner is looking for. So how you should structure your answer, the type of points to include, how you should make your points, how you should reference the transactions, etc. So I'll work through a few of these questions so you can start to see the similarities between the questions, and you can see that even though they're based on different businesses and therefore they've got different financial reporting and audit issues, actually the approach that you take is the same every time. So please make sure that you watch these classes, because these really develop your exam technique and your AI analysis skills. And whilst they are on different businesses than your advanced information and your exam will be, these are still really useful to watch and attempt yourself so that you can develop those AI analysis and exam technique skills. And if you think about it, all the questions you practice are on different businesses than the ones you'll face in the exam. That's the same for all the ACA exams. Whenever you're practicing questions in the question bank from past exams, of course, the business you get in your exam won't be exactly the same. But of course, question practice is still hugely beneficial. The benefit from it, of course, is being able to apply that technical content and familiarize yourself with how the questions are structured and develop your exam technique. So make sure you do practice these past AI-based questions so you start to build some familiarity with how both the advanced information and the exam paper are structured and the type of transactions that you need to identify in inflow. But once again, a different type of question, but exactly the same approach. I'll explain the key technical content, and then I'll work through the exam questions, demonstrating the exam technique to use, and then you can go and practice similar questions. And then finally, we'll look at the smaller topics of financial statement analysis and ethics. But again, exactly the same. I'll explain the key technical content and then work through questions. And then after the class, of course, you can go away and practice the other questions to implement that exam technique that I taught you. And then to finish off, I'll work through an exam in full. So I've used a November 2023 exam. Of course, I'll have to analyze the advanced information. First of all, this was released prior to the exam. But again, similar to these classes, I'll be explaining and identifying the key financial reporting and audit issues, and then working through the exam in full using the 12-month data set and the new information provided on exam day, and then moving on to tackle the other two questions. So therefore, this is really useful to watch at the end of the class, because you see me bring it all together, and then you see me tackle all of the different question types simultaneously, which of course is what you need to do in the exam. So you can really see how we've broken CR down into topics and question types, and this of course makes it much more manageable. So for each topic, I'm going to explain the technical content in a straightforward, easy to understand, simplified way, and then immediately after work through exam questions to demonstrate how to read the requirement, how to interpret and analyze the additional information that the examiner has provided, and then how to produce an answer which delivers exactly what the examiner is looking for in order to score top marks. And then immediately after the class, you can go and practice the other questions on that topic, which are in the ICAW question bank, and therefore you can put into practice that exam technique that I've taught you. And you're actively testing yourself on that content that you've learnt in the exact scenario that you'll be examined in the exam. So by understanding the content and then immediately attempting questions, you're actively testing yourself on that content, and you're testing yourself in the scenario and in the format that you'll be examined on in the exam. And therefore, you'll not only reinforce that technical content that you've learned, but you'll also build up your exam skills, your exam technique, and you'll start to see familiarities in the questions, the way things are worded, the types of points to look out for in the exam. So this is a really effective way of getting you up to exam standard as soon as possible. And it's also a very manageable way of doing so by breaking it down into the individual topics, so that you can get a feel for how the course is structured and my teaching approach. We have a free sample class available on the CR page of the ACA Masters website. So here you can watch me work through an exam standard question. So this class is an additional question on financial instruments. So that's after the technical class on financial instruments, but there's a brief technical recap there. And also you get to see me work through a question, so you can see the ways that the classes are structured and the exam techniques which are taught. To get some insight as to how the course has helped other students, we have some student feedback below. Lots of students struggle with the CR exam, but they find that this exam technique focused approach has really helped them. So after failing, they've then drastically increased their mark after using the course. As I said, we've got lots of useful advice in here as to how you should structure your answer, how to allocate the marks, how to answer several parts of the question together, and how to present your answer. So CR is undoubtedly a really tough exam, but this exam-focused approach has proved hugely successful for past students, and I'm confident that it will prove highly successful for you too. So I'm very much looking forward to getting you through your CR exam with top marks.